Welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast where all your dreams come true. Just totally kidding. It's not going to happen here. But it is eventually, right? This is about the forward movement in the pursuit of everything that you want to be. And so if this is just a continuous touch point for you where you can come back, rally yourself, continue questioning and growing and expanding and never limiting where you go. Because honestly, like the second that we start to put limits on it, we halt our ability to take in something that may be beautifully meant for us. And that's kind of what we're diving into today. But first, let's get to our great thing. We're going to just center ourselves, get back here, come back to homeland right here. My great thing, let's see. This was kind of it was a little bit longer of a week. It seemed like a longer weekend. I don't know. I've been asking, really intentional about asking for longer lengths of time while the minutes don't span out, really making sure that I'm requesting the moments that I want to take more time to really take longer. Just give me more time, give me enough time to just fully enjoy this moment. And that has been making significant changes in what time looks like for me, and in my ability to just fully enjoy the moment that I'm in. But my great thing from this weekend, I think, was just not cycling back into old ways. So if you've been listening for a little while, we've been working through all of the shadow work, which is now what we'll call it. To me, it was limiting beliefs, but it wasn't all just related to limiting beliefs, and a little bit of it was just shadows. And now that I'm reframing and renaming everything, all of basically the last year and a half has been shadow work. But one of those things has been food and eating for me. And this weekend I was thinking and processing that because I'm starting a class with Mia Greco, who I had on the show a couple of months ago, who really helped me to just dismantle this entire shadow that was holding me back. And before I started that class, I wanted to set my intention. What is my purpose here? What am I even going to do here? Why am I taking this time to take this class? And for me, it's the final removal of what that held against me. And here's where I go. To me, the reason that this is shadow, right? It's not just oh, Hannah wants to look good and feel good in her body. This is where we cross over into the shadow. And I think where you can really start to recognize and understand that food, your body image, your vision of who you are and what you become, right, can be so much more and really has a bigger tie. And honestly, a tie to your entire mentality and your outtake on life. It is that big a deal. And you can think that you're not being impacted by it, but as you start to reframe and re-acknowledge what this looks like for you, I think this breaks it down. So I was thinking, as I was trying to frame my mind, I was in the shower, where all good thoughts come. And I was trying to reframe my mind, and this is kind of where I settled. And I think this is where it takes it into that shadow realm, right? I have always known the one good thing about me was my body, right? No one has ever questioned that. It has always been tall and thin and all things good, right? And so, right, it was always meant for sports. It was always perfectly made for the world that I was in. And I was super tall and super thin, and no one seemed to question that. And the comments that were made about my body were always good. And so as I ventured out of the identity of being an athlete, all of a sudden it became very important to keep that identity, the identity of my body being good. If I didn't have that, I had nothing at all, right? I was no good because I was no longer an athlete. The performance of my body wasn't important. And so the appearance of my body became super important to me. It was the only thing that really mattered. In fact, every single goal that I had set since becoming an adult, right? Every single New Year's resolution, everything that I did and resoluted to and set goals for were body related. And you think about, why was that, Hannah? Right? Like, really, grand scheme, when you walk into adulthood, it doesn't really matter, right? But why did it matter to me? Well, I was clinging to the only identity that I knew was good about me, right? And so as we started to do that shadow work, as we started to dive into that a little bit deeper, it was super important to identify and work through that and continue to do that work. So it's not over, right? Like, we've done so much work since Mia impacted me all those months ago, but we're still not there, right? So now I'm just working on the other side of that. Now that we've released, right, that identity, now that we've released what that looks like for me, those things that I was holding on to, now that we've let those things go, where do we go from here? How do we not fall back into those habits? How do we not start to restrict and eat like that again? How do I know that I'm safe? How do I know that I'm healed? And you're never really healed, right? But how do I save myself from working back into that pattern where my body is my identity and the only thing that's important? So we're doing further work, and I think for me it was acknowledging that I don't know it all yet, right? Acknowledging that I still have work to do here, that I'm not going to be able to do this by myself. This is like such a drastic next step. And the last time that we took a big step here, right, I called on a professional, which was Mia. And so I'm going to go ahead and call her in again. And again, if you want to enroll in something like this, I think she's still actually accepting people. So you can go ahead and enroll. Just message Mia. She's pretty cool. She's on Instagram. She's on Facebook too. But it's Olive Branch Nutrition on Instagram, and you can just DM her and see if you can get in her course. But what I love about it is, like, we're walking through some very important stuff. We're letting go of diets, holding on to our identity. So yesterday I wrote down, like, I'm just pissed at this point, right? I'm pissed that I allowed myself to be wrapped up in that identity so much, in an identity that really isn't all that important, that really didn't serve me all that well, that I didn't do anything. That I could have written like goals to cure world hunger, or goals to build a company, or goals to write a book, or goals to, for goodness sakes, I could have done anything. And instead I was just writing goals to make myself smaller. That's just insane. That's insane in the grand scheme of things that you could be doing. And by all means, if your health and wellness are important, no doubt. But this is about not letting it own the entirety of your life, right? Not being so focused on that you aren't doing anything else with your life outside of working a 9 to 5, unless that completely fulfills you and all there is left to do is work out and exercise and eat right. Like, it just absorbed too much of my energy for me to do anything else. And it's so important that I start to transition and kind of champion where I was at. And so that's my great thing from this weekend, was just recommitting and continuing that work and signifying and acknowledging, like, I don't know it all, By the way, if you were listening to this and thinking that I did, and now you're going to stop listening because you just found out that I don't, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to have disappointed you, but I don't, and no one else does either. So do not let anyone fool you. I think for me, it's just about the continuance of this work. It really is about the commitment to not knowing everything, the commitment to myself to continue growing and learning and taking each step day by day and bringing those steps right here and talking through them with all of you as we all grow to a new space together. And we're not all growing to the same thing, right? But just the allowance, the letting down of that guard that I don't know it all, and that's okay. It's actually good. If you knew it all, like, what would be the point of being here anymore? I'm just saying. Okay, so take time, do your own great thing, practice your own greatness. You have to do it. I'm just saying, like, it makes a difference. It really does. Okay, do it already. All right, so the title today is Seek Less, Allow More. And yes, I was just channeling a little bit of Hamilton, and if you're not channeling that, go ahead and look up that soundtrack. There is a reason that it is on everyone's top playlist for 2020. Like, I can't be without that soundtrack. When I try to not be with it, it's always coming up in my, it's always coming up in things that I'm playing and doing. It's just always there. No question. And so yes, I was channeling it. Seek less, allow more. Don't let them know what you're against or what you're for. You want to get ahead. Okay, I'll stop singing. I am not made for Broadway. But I think really so here's where we're going with this. And this is such a hard concept. This is a hard concept for me. This is a hard concept for, I don't know, every single person that's ever navigated this life, but it really is about letting go and allowing. So here's what I'm going to throw out there. Yesterday, I had this crazy idea. Like, Hanna, you need to create more. Someone had posted something that creatives they usually choose one medium that they gravitate towards. But if you're a creator, you can create anything. And you should. You should just create more. And so that's where I got this idea. I'm like, you know what? I need to create more. The only thing that I'm creating is, one, digitally, two, in this space, in this realm where I'm speaking, and then I'm writing. And I want to continue flexing this muscle and see where we get. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I'll paint. I don't really know why. I don't know why I would paint. No idea. But I want to continue, right? I want to test this out, try this. And so I start to look up paint. I look up watercolors. For some reason, that's kind of speaking to me. And then I'm served oil pastels. And then I remember when I was younger, really liked oil pastels. I like the way that they look. I like the way that the colors blend. I appreciate that. And so then I decide, okay, it's going to be oil pastels. It's going to look like oil pastels for me. That's what I'm going to do. And that caused me yesterday to go and buy some oil pastels and a notepad to color on, a pastel notepad. I don't know, right? I'm not a professional here, and I'm not trying to be. And so I buy it, and I get home. Actually, when I check out, the checkout lady goes, "Oh my gosh, you do oil pastels? Are you just starting, or do you do this a lot?" And I'm like, well, I'm just going to test it out, see where I get. I don't know. I just feel drawn to it. I want to do it. And she goes, yeah, I have oil pastels at home. But you know what? I don't know how to work with them. I got to watch some videos. And I got to figure out, how to be good at it. And I'm like, yeah, I suppose that's what you would need to do anything, right? You'd need to watch and learn how to do this. And so I get home And I'm thinking, part of the way home, like, oh no, I don't know how to oil pastel. I don't remember any of the techniques. I don't remember any of the things that I'm supposed to be doing. How do I oil pastel? How do I do that? And for me, sorry. For me, it was kind of like, what am I even going to create? And I had known what I was going to create. I wanted to start drawing these kind of reoccurring dreams that I keep having. And they don't have people because trust, like, I'm not drawing people. Okay, but they're more just like colors. And the reason that I think I gravitated towards oil pastels is because the colors like blend and flow together, and there's not really existing space and dimension. Like, it all blends and flows. And so I wanted to start drawing that. I wanted to start putting that out there. And when she had said, like, oh yeah, I totally want to do that, but I don't know how to work with them. I have them, but I'm not. So when I got home, I just committed to, I drew the first couple of lines, and this is what I figured out. Oil pastels, probably not something that you want to, go cheap on. Now, I will say the craft store that I went to only had one cheap option. They had no other options. They didn't even have like the way expensive option and then the cheap option. They had only one option. And so I didn't have a choice. What I now know is I should have just waited. But basically they had like a kid's set of oil pastels. And so I draw the first line and I'm like, oh no, this is not what I remember these being, right? And of course they weren't. They were like the $3 off brand of oil pastels. But I draw the first line and I'm like, oh no, right? And that imposter syndrome starts to set in, that like, I want to start seeking. Of course, there's like this natural thought that you have to be good at anything that you start, right? And that wasn't what I was committing to. The only thing I was committing to was just starting to get these ideas out on paper in some medium, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, I don't know exactly how these work, but I do remember the blending, the importance of the blending. And so I went and I grabbed a paper towel and I start blending, and that's not even working because like these oil pastels aren't absorbing. Like, I love the idea of the absorption of the oil pastels, like the way that they like sink into the paper and the paper like, right, takes in the moisture. Like, I don't know, there's something about it, but this was not the experience. I can remember that experience when I was younger. This was not that same experience. These oil pastels did not sink in at all. And so I'm coloring, then I start to like smudge and like just mess around with blending, and I have to do a lot of it because these things aren't working the way that I think they're supposed to. We'll see. I have to maybe order a new set. But, right, I just stay committed to the fact that I don't need to be an expert. Like, the joy of learning something is what I'm trying to experience right now. And I don't need to learn and take some expert course on this. I'm just doing it for the pure enjoyment of doing it. And it was so much fun. It really was. Once I allowed myself to just seek it, like just seek it out. What does coloring look like again? What does just like, there was no reason, there was no purpose. I don't envision myself ever creating a business out of my oil pastels, right? I don't envision myself ever selling any of these. I just envision myself doing it and enjoying it, period. And I found so much enjoyment out of just doing it, just experimenting, not really having the constructs of being good or being successful or being anything with these creations, right? the intent behind it was just to be creative. And giving it that allowance really gave me so much freedom to just do. And I'll maybe post the end product, but like, how many times do we do that with things? Right? We set like these major expectations. And I did it with this cohort that I'm starting this week too. I had to like pump the brakes hard on myself because I'm just like, just allow. You're in this class to learn, just like you're doing these oil pastels to just learn and commit to continuing to do and learn and grow. You don't have to know it all right now. You're here for a reason, right? Hanna, you're drawn to oil pastels for a reason. Just let it happen. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, what I was trying to stress to my kids as they were doing the same thing is like, there really is, especially in the creative field, there's no perfect. There's no way to be perfect, because perfect and beauty and art really are so subjective. There's no way to even put a grade on it. Yikes. Please don't tell the world that, right? And that's kind of the cool thing about creating, is it's about connection. It's not really about perfection, right? And so anything that you're doing creatively, anything that you're doing that you're trying to build, that you're building from scratch, that you just feel drawn to, I want you to seek it out like that. Let's all stop seeking perfection and let's just keep moving in a consistent direction and allow things to flow. The flow, right? You ever just like get into a flow with anything that you're trying to do? When we put timelines and constructs and all of these regular business things into play, sometimes it hurts our ability to just flow. And the reality is, the flow is what's running things anyways. Your ability to sink into those spaces, sink in and out, and move freely in those spaces is drastically impacted by how much you allow, right? What are you allowing to happen, and what are you controlling happening? You're really, if you really look at it big picture, please don't get annoyed with me, but like seriously, if you really look at it big picture, you're not in control of anything anyways. So why don't we stop seeking things? The most amazing thing that I have found in doing this work, in continuing to just move forward versus run forward, versus climb as fast as I can and then stop, climb as fast as I can and then stop. It's like, if you're willing to slow down and listen, actually listen, if you're willing to do that, things will flow to you. They will. And that's why I think really at the end of the day, we're the ones wearing ourselves out, setting these big, huge expectations of what it needs to look like. And I'm here for you. I'm so here for you. I have the biggest, craziest, most audacious dreams, and I'm taking whatever step I can when it comes along. I know exactly what I'm going after, but big picture, that could happen in 50 years. That could never happen in my lifetime, right? And that would be okay, because the beauty really is in this process, right? the coolest part of doing this podcast has just been in the continuance of doing it and the ability for me to learn about myself and grow myself through all of this. And no doubt, I started this podcast, all of my movements, with this like direct eyesight on what I wanted to accomplish and what I wanted to do and how I was going to get there, and that this was going to be the thing. And now we've morphed and moved into this place where this is one of the outlets that allows me to expand my creativity. And it was the only one that really I felt free to move in when I first started. This was the best creative outlet. As we continue to move into, guess what? Expansion, right? Now that we've kind of had this year of settling and semblance and removal and refocus and intention, now we're moving into this space where we're going to start expanding what creativity looks like, expanding what we grow into, and just allowing things to expand me, right? Like, I'm not in control of the expansion. The expansion is happening as a result of me allowing things to come to me as they are, right? And not me going out and knocking on every door and like forcing and shaking hands and writing and forcing and doing this and seeking out and trust. Like, I've been in that space. I'm just now coming into the space where I'm truly just trusting. Like, that's it. I believe everything's going to happen. No question. Whether it happens while I'm still here in my earthly body or it happens way later, like a true, I don't know, who was that, Picasso? But like, no matter how it happens, it's not really about the seeking and the running. And by all means, if you're being called to do that, then do that. That may be your path of allowance. For me, it's just like those things that are made for me are going to come to me, period. And if they don't, I'm either not ready, right? Or it just wasn't meant for me. It's not the time. It's not now. But for me, it's like if I feel called to do something, I'll do it. I'll apply for the thing. I'll put it out there. I'll try, right? And then it's just like, just sit back and know that your timing will come. It will happen if you continue to just flow, and stop exhausting yourself with these expectations that it has to be this one big thing. Whatever it looks like, go ahead, write it down. Like, put it out there into the world. The universe wants to respond to you, no question. But like, you don't have to chase it until you kill all of your own like excitement to do this, right? The girl yesterday, I want to oil pastel, but I don't know how. I need to watch some videos. Like, well, after you've watched 2,000 videos on how to oil pastel, and you're probably watching professionals, and you're probably watching people who are way better at oil pastels than you may ever be, then you get on, then you start working with them, and you get exhausted because it doesn't look like anything that they're doing, right? And then all of a sudden you're angry, you're throwing all your oil pastels away, and you're just done. Well, yeah, like first you exhausted yourself by putting it into this hole of this is what it has to look like, and these are the techniques that I have to use, and I'm going to be successful at this because I'm going to watch 20 hours of videos before I even start. I don't trust my creative process enough to just try it and see what happens, right? I want you to start trusting that, start flexing that muscle without guidance. Just do it and see where you get, and stop expecting to be successful tomorrow. Start sucking at more stuff. It's okay, just keep trying, right? Just keep going. It's okay to not be the best. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.